Well, this is Indecisive Cinema, episode 20.
20.
We've done 20 of these things.
20 episodes, bro.
I know it's been like
of course, for
5 years.
4 years.
But, hey, we've done 20. We've stuck with
20,
it, which is awesome. Now we're back at it with the video thing, as you can see.
This is good, yeah.
You can see our beautiful faces.
As you can see, as he said, that was good.
We've got a ton of movies to talk about today.
Yes, we do.
We've got 6, which is more than we ever have. I saw a ton of stuff, and you saw several as well.
A couple of things, yeah. A couple of things.
So we've got a lot of movies to talk about. We've got the Guilty, which is I think it's French. I'll have to look that up before we start talking about it. Burning, which is a Korean film. I need to look up the countries of all these movies that I'm talking about, that we're going to talk about. Then Carlos saw Ralph Breaks the Internet. I saw Widows and The Favorite. And he saw we both seen The Apostle. Or Apostle. I don't think there's a D. I don't know. It doesn't really matter.
It is Apostle. Yeah, you're right.
It is Apostle.
It is Apostle. Yeah.
So we've got several movies to talk about.
Yeah.
And there's not much else going to happen in this episode.
We're just talking movies.
Exactly right.
What the nature intended.
We want as much time to talk about the movies as possible. So
Amen.
We're going to get right into it.
Let's do it.
I guess I should have looked up the country of the guilty before we started talking about it, like I said.
I heard
10
about
seconds
it.
ago.
I heard about it. I was reading something and I was like, oh, this looks interesting. I didn't know it was foreign though.
So it is Danish.
Oh, okay, not French.
Not French. I don't know the difference. I live in Europe. I am barely educated and
offending everyone across the world.
Yes, exactly right. So it's essentially it's about a man that works as a emergency officer for he handles the phones for basically their 911 essentially.
Yeah.
He's dealing with things like somebody calls in because they fell off their bike and they need emergency services, and then anything from that to more extreme things like somebody getting robbed or mugged or whatever. And so it shows you a little bit of kind of the day-to-day. It all takes place over one night, and it all takes place in one location. The events of the film happen off screen, but the actual what we're seeing as an audience is all inside of the room where he works, or at least kind of the few rooms in the building where he works.
All right.
And so he's kind of going through the regular calls of the night, and then all of a sudden somebody calls him. It's a woman who we realize is in a vehicle with somebody who's kidnapped her, essentially. And so he kind of discovers that through asking her kind of his typical questions that he would ask anybody. And he attempts to do everything he can on his end in order to help this woman. And the events of the film kind of unfold in what I would almost compare it to the scenes in The Departed, where I think it's Leo. I forget if it's Leo or Matt Damon. I think it's Matt Damon who's on the computer in his office, on the phone, talking to people. And it's very, very tense. Very, it is a thriller. It's kind of a by the book thriller. It's really good. The script is really tight. The plot unfolds in a way that I wouldn't have expected. It got good reviews, so I had pretty high expectations going in, and I think it surprised me. The performances are there's not very many other people in the film aside from the voice actors on the phone, but the lead, Jacob Settergren, that's one thing I prepared for this. I wrote his name down. I'm sure I didn't pronounce that well enough, but it's just a really tight, solid, polished thriller, and it works. It's really effective. They're actually making an American remake of it with Jake Gyllenhaal already, so it's already done well enough. I don't know who we were talking about the other day, who I think would be good to direct that. I haven't figured out who I thought would be.
Making tight thrillers.
Because I obviously you'd love to see a great do it like David Fincher or somebody like that. I don't think we'll be that lucky, but I hope it doesn't end up being something like, remember The Call with
Halle Berry?
Halle Berry.
Yeah. That popped in my mind. But also the way you described the opening. Have you ever saw The Last Shift on Netflix?
I haven't. That's a horror film.
The horror film, and it's like that. It takes place in the police station. She's by herself, and she's getting calls. Regular calls, and then she starts getting calls from these demons. And so I remember when you said that, I was like, Why does it sound like The Last Shift? You should check it out. You dig it.
That sounds good.
Yeah.
It reminds me a lot of, I don't know if you saw the movie Locke with Tom Hardy.
No. It's on the HBO. I don't know why.
Some of that's because of the set, like the actual.
It's only in one
way
shot.
It's all, Locke is set all in his car over the course of one evening. This is very similar, and the tension builds in a very similar way.
Yeah.
The characters kind of unfold over you learn more about these people and the main character, obviously. Over the phone, which is it's different. It's something that, even though Locke is very similar, we don't get a lot of movies like this, which are like every scene takes place in one area or one location, and it just allows for the actors to really perform it.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's really good, and I know it played in theaters at a few kind of smaller.
Yeah, because I remember reading about it when it was here in Houston.
Draft House, but it's not. I think it's on DVD. It's where I watched it at home. So
you
it's
want?
on
Okay,
demand. Not on Netflix yet, but I'm assuming if you keep an eye out for it, it may be at some point. But really good, worth seeing. The next one on our list is called Burning, which is before I start talking about it, I'm gonna look that one up as well. So it's a Korean film about a kind of he's in the middle of his college years aged guy, and he is kind of walking through the marketplace somewhere in kind of a shopping center, and he runs into this girl that he grew up with. They're like doing like some kind of raffle, and she like enters his name into it, and then kind of says, "Do you remember me?" And she says that she had plastic surgery, and
Interesting.
basically she was kind of like not a lingerie model, but like definitely wearing like revealing clothing and kind of trying to draw in customers. And they go on a date, and she asks him to watch her cat while she goes to Africa on the trip. Which is very odd. So this movie is very odd.
Is it a comedy
I'll get to
now?
that once I
Great.
set up that premise.
It's a setup, all right.
Then she comes back from Africa, and she comes back with the guy from The Walking Dead, the one that plays the Asian dude from
Glenn. Yeah.
Glenn, yes. No, I've seen Walking Dead.
Yes,
It's been 4 years, though. And so he's kind of this rich, mysterious, we don't really know what he does, but very charming and very secretive. Well, he comes across that way. We don't know quite what his deal is.
And he speaks Korean? The movie is a Korean?
Yeah, so everything's foreign language.
Yeah, I didn't know.
His name is Ben in the film, though, which is kind of interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And she brings this guy back, and he doesn't quite know what his deal is. There's this scene where Ben mentions this hobby that he has, and I won't spoil what it is because it ties into the whole point of the film. But the plot Ben doesn't show up for almost an hour, maybe 45 minutes.
How long is the movie?
The film is probably 2.5 hours long, so it's appropriate, but it definitely feels long.
Mm-hmm.
I kind of, throughout it, I felt a little bored at times, but as it concluded, I felt like everything in the first half made sense. And I want to make some comparisons to a film that's very different in a lot of ways, but Mandy, which is a Nicolas Cage film, which I love from this year, which has a very kind of two-part structure, where the first half is kind of setting up this, and Mandy is a totally different film in the second half, and Burning is very similar. It feels as though this character, who is all of a sudden not in the film, I'm not going to say for what reason, lingers throughout the rest of the movie, and in a really haunting, kind of interesting way. And it makes that first half that I didn't like really feel like there's something there. I can't quite pinpoint what this movie is, or what I like or even dislike about it. Like, there's things that I because even my complaints, I feel like, were things that the movie needed. I don't know, like the first half, the kind of it feels like certain scenes don't go anywhere, and it's a hard film to recommend for that reason. But it's very interesting, and I can't quite pinpoint it. And the more I think about it, the more I like it. So. And I've listened to other people talk about it.
Ain't that always the way? You start talking about it, then you start liking it. Yeah.
And I've listened to other people discuss it, and it makes me even more intrigued to see it again. And you have this Ben character and the lead, who are almost like opposing forces. They're kind of they're not opposites necessarily, but the way they approach certain elements of life are very different. Some of that's because of class. Some of that's because of money. So he's a kind of the lead is more of a farmer. He doesn't have a ton of money, and there's his upbringing was very different from at least what we know of this Ben character. And so there's kind of opposing class issues and also kind of opposing family dynamics and opposing views on sexuality. There's these weird kind of they're almost opposing forces throughout the entire film, and there's this conflict that occurs because of that, and it's really interesting. And the dynamic between the lead three characters is something that I just haven't seen anything like it. And I think it's worth seeing on the big screen if you can. It's probably done with its run as of now. But it's really damn good, and it might creep its way into my top 10 if I see it again and like it more.
It's an interesting.
But it's also a hard film to recommend. Yeah, it's just a really intriguing one.
I mean, just from what you just said, I definitely want to see this movie just to see what it's about. But yeah.
It's set in Korea. It's set so his home is on kind of the border of North and South Korea, which plays a backdrop in the whole movie.
Okay.
There's some really interesting stuff at work, and I think it's an interesting movie. So, anyway, long-winded description of that.
I can't follow that up when Ralph breaks the internet.
Yeah, so now we're going to get back into, you got 7 minutes to describe Ralph breaks the internet.
Yeah, 17 minutes to describe it. No, so, I'll even do it quicker. I mean, Ralph breaks the nothing like burning.
So Ralph breaks the internet is the sequel.
It's a sequel to Wreck-It Ralph, which is funny because there's a joke at the end, but in the trailer, there's a scene where, he says, why not just call it Wreck-It Ralph 2? And she's like, well, Ralph breaks the internet, it's better. That's not in the film. And there's a lot of scenes in the trailer not in the film, but it comes back at the end, which is funny. No spoilers. I mean, just if you guys do remember me, I'm a big kid at heart. I did go with my children, but I did enjoy Wreck-It Ralph very much. It's a classic Disney film in the fact that, there's always this story of a guy who overcomes odds, and at the end there's and you've all seen Wreck-It Ralph, so there's no spoilers here. Goes to sacrifice himself to save the world, all that Jesus stuff. And so it's really good. I love the Wreck-It Ralph. Ralph Breaks the Internet is good, it's cute. It's funny because, with all the trailers and all the stuff leading up to it, they show you, look, Disney owns everything now. So we're going to show you Star Wars, we're going to show you Marvel, we're going to show you, Disney princesses. And I actually was, gearing up for that. And they do, the Star Wars stuff you see in the trailer, that's literally what happens in the movie. And there's no spoilers because it's in the trailer. And same thing with the Disney princesses that you see in the trailer, that is a very funny, poignant scene that comes back for the main point of the film.
Are they entire scenes, or are they just like slight references to things?
No, like I said, with Star Wars, there's an entire scene, but it's just you see in the trailer with maybe a minute more. The princess stuff, there's probably now the 2 extra minutes to that, because everything you see in the trailer. But there's something that happens within the princess scene that goes toward the point of the film, which is good.
So they're actually elements of the plot. It's not just like
correct, but even
Ready Player One, where they just throw stuff. Not that movie's all references.
Because there's a million references in video games and such, and that's cool. That was in the first film, but none of them were like scenes that broke or made the film.
Sure.
The Disney scene is the one that makes or break the film. There's a point of that scene. But I didn't like it again. I know it's not stupid because I'm saying the Star Wars scene was just a throwaway, like, oh look, we got Star Wars, we own Star Wars. Maybe because Marvel wasn't 100% of the filming of the film, they didn't do any Marvel characters. But I actually did want to see a throwaway scene because I love superheroes, I love Marvel. But it was like you just see that scene of Marvel at the headquarters, and then that's it. You never see nothing again. You don't see any superheroes. But other than that, it was cute. Gail Gadot. I kept saying Gail Gadot.
Is it Gadot?
But I heard now it's Gail Gadot when they were announcing awards this year. She plays this badass character in a video game called Slaughter Race that Vanellope and Ralph end up coming in contact with because, I don't want to give away a lot. I don't know what was in the trailer, but the point is that they need to save the video game arcade, and to do that they need to find a part to a game. So they go into the internet to try to find it because of eBay, which is funny because eBay plays a big part of the film. And then, in a side scene, without any spoilers, they find out, how the little pop-ups, how to make money make quick money. They find this little bot that tells you if you play video games, you make money. So they go into this video game, and that plays a big part in the film. Gail Gadot plays the lead character, the Latina badass, and she was really good. It's funny, who's that? And then at the end, when it said Gail Gadot, I was like, oh my God, it makes sense. But it's really cute. It's not as poignant as the first film. Like I said, any type you do, someone saves tries to save the world, sacrifices him to save the world.
You can only do that so many times.
Yeah, and so in this one, it's just like, basic, that's it. You gotta get the part, go into the internet. While on the internet, this thing happens where Vanellope starts to question herself. Actually, well, I guess since Ralph did it in part 1, Vanellope does it in part 2, where she has to question who she is and what she's doing. And then it just culminates.
That's the Sarah Silverman character, right?
Sarah Silverman, I love Sarah Silverman. I love her way back on the Sarah Silverman program. Great show on Comedy Central. I own the DVD. And, like I said, I guess it's more of a Vanellope movie if you think about it, even though Ralph, does this big thing. But it was really good, and I enjoyed that. And it's a good kid for, like I said, take the kids. But it's not as good as Wreck-It Ralph, but Ralph Breaks the Internet, I do recommend to families who are going to take their kids. What's next?
The latest from Steve McQueen, called Widows. Which is, this is definitely, it's an ensemble kind of crime thriller. And we're just talking about thrillers all day. Ralph Breaks the Internet.
Serious, right?
The opening of it is a sequence that shows a robbery that takes place. It's Liam Neeson and I think 3 other individuals that rob a person that's running for local government. They're also a gang, and they don't get away with it. Essentially, which is in the trailer. No spoilers.
Yeah. It's called Widows for a reason.
It's called Widows.
So it's all guys.
Paperboy.
Brian Tyree Henry.
Paperboy goes to Viola Davis and threatens her. And basically says, your husband robbed me. I want my money back. And it's like several $1 million, and so she's tasked with finding a way to somehow get his money back. And the trailer kind of sets it up as this kind of generic by the numbers heist movie starring woman, which in itself could work. It doesn't look very good. I've told a lot of people this movie's, in my opinion, one of the best of the year, and a lot of people go, that trailer looks terrible. Like, that movie looks terrible. Like, I have no interest in that. And I say, but watch the trailer again with the concept that it's made by a filmmaker who's one of the best people working right now, and that's Steve McQueen, in my opinion. As you watch that trailer again, you'll see that there's even elements in the trailer that are like, I've never seen a heist sequence shot that way. I don't know if I let me get back into the plot, because I'm going on a tangent about my thoughts, but essentially the 4 of these widows kind of come together and trying to find a way to pull off this heist, and the movie spends most of its time diving into these characters and diving into the politics of this world and the location set in Chicago. There's a sequence where you see Michelle Rodriguez's kid grab this little toy voice changer, and they don't mention it until the heist, and then they all when they're doing the heist, they are using that toy voice changer.
Yeah.
So that's the way the movie kind of is really subtle about the way it sets up the elements of the heist, so that when the heist happens, we just watch that play out. I've seen it twice now. I would love to see it again. It's just an amazing film from a great filmmaker and great screenwriter. Yeah. I hope it wins. I hope Steve McQueen wins Best Director. I would love to see that. Yeah. At least as of now. There may be some other films that we'll talk about the favorite here in a second, which is fantastic. But this movie's really damn good, and I think the trailer doesn't give it enough credit, and I hope that more people go see it. Yeah. I guess we'll move on to the favorite next, and then we'll do a Apostle. So I guess we'll talk about the favorite. The reason I look so sleepy is because I saw it at the 10:35 last night.
Where'd you go?
At the shittiest theater in Houston. No, it's not the shittiest, but it sucks.
Which one?
AMC 30. I hate that theater. It's my least favorite theater I've ever been to, and a lot of it's because it's just always busy, and so it's dirty. The lines are always long. Nothing works. Like the kiosks outside never work. They sometimes do, but it's hit or miss, and you'll go and buy your ticket and then have to go over to the line and sit in the line again to get your ticket because the printers don't work. Yeah. Just go
to customer service. That's what we do with the little AMC stubs. I go to customer service. I walk right in. So
yeah. The chairs are uncomfortable. The projectors are all going out. So the Dolby Atmos theater I've sat through several screenings where there was no air conditioning. Nothing worked. The drink machines didn't work properly, or at least half of them worked. The butter machines didn't work. The popcorn was burnt. The line took forever. I just always have a bad experience there. And then we go to sit in those shitty chairs that they have, the ones that don't recline. I don't even trash AMCs. There's good AMCs out there. There's one over in Stafford that's really great. But this AMC The good news is they play movies like The Favorite at 10:30
they
at night.
do have good movies.
And there was no one in the theater at that point. The problem, but even like the screen, there
Were
was
you the only one there?
well, I went with a couple friends, but there were 6 of us in the theater.
Holy shit, bird! Yeah, go on.
But no complaints there.
Oh, I love. Yeah.
But even like the screen, so in the very middle of the screen, there's a tear in the actual. It's got to be a tear in the actual material of the screen.
Yeah.
And so there's just a little spot in the middle of the fucking screen. I was just like, I can't. Like, I wish I had just driven to Draft House, because it's just, I always have a better experience. And I don't know, especially for a movie like this that I was very excited for.
Yeah.
The Favorite is a story set in England, and I don't know my eras, but sometime in the Downton Abbey
1800s?
era. Yeah. Go for it. You're the history person, apparently.
I said it was 1800s. You're the one
All right, let's say 1800s.
Downton Abbey.
I'm sure somebody out there is gonna be like, it was actually, it's not that important.
You guys don't know your eras.
It's during a time where England is at war with France, and there's that kind of happening in the background. But it's honestly, I don't think most of the setting plays much of a role in the film, and in terms of all that's important is kind of how it pertains to the power of the main 3 characters. But we'll get into that. Yeah. 18th century England.
18th
Boom.
century.
We got it. We got this.
I said that first. Go on.
I know. No, I'm saying we both together. I got England.
Together we came together.
He got 18th century, so we nailed it.
Yes.
But it's about the Queen and her kind of right-hand lady, played by Rachel Weisz. The Queen Anne is her name, and Rachel Weisz plays Lady Sarah, is the name of her character. Mm-hmm. Emma Stone kind of disrupts that dynamic between the two of them, and Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz kind of begin to go at it because of that. This is a film by Yorgos Lanthimos, who I'm a huge fan of, a director of Dogtooth, Alps, The Lobster, which is probably my favorite of his, and Killing of the Sacred Deer, which came out about 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
His films tend to be very extreme, which this is another perfect example of that. Very odd camera work, characters. This movie has less of like the monotone dialogue that like The Lobster or Killing of the Sacred Deer would have. So it's less extreme in like regards to kind of how characters act. They're more normal, but they're definitely elevated. You tend to see with period pieces kind of extravagant, elegant, very mannered royalty, and this is the opposite. It's
like Harlots. You ever watch Harlots on Hulu?
I haven't.
That's a very like realistic view of England in the 18th century as well, and there's shit like that too. So that's why I dig Harlots. But anyway, go on.
Yeah, it's and realistic is a perfect description. There's no way that royalty was that elegant. And so this movie kind of toys with that notion. And there's other films that have done that, but it's just very biting and dark and mean. This movie's very mean. There's a thing called Cinema Score, which essentially kind of rates movies based on how they deliver on their trailer, on the expectations of their trailer. And this movie, I think, would get a perfect rating, because I think the trailer definitely portrays how just kind of mean and weird and strange this movie is, from the way it's shot to the way characters interact, because it isn't, like I said, it's not your traditional kind of film about royalty. It's definitely
I guess that was my question, because like with The Lobster and Killing the Sacred Deer, this seems more like a period piece, but you're saying it's not. Is it more in vain?
Well, it's definitely a period piece.
But is it as weird or surrealistic as The Lobster?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's not. Well, not. So it's very weird, and I don't know if surreal. I don't know if I'd go, because like The Lobster's set in, it's almost a fantasy.
Yeah, it's a sci-fi.
It's not a real. This is definitely grounded in reality, but the characters are elevated in a way that they're elevated for comedy to some degree. But just the way they banter between one another is very odd, and in a way that Yorgos is notorious for. So. Everybody's really fantastic in this. The script is amazing. I think it's one of the first movies that Yorgos didn't write himself, which is kind of interesting. And it's another comparing it to Burning. It's another film about opposing forces, about these Rachel Weisz's character and Emma Stone kind of going at it in a power struggle, in the way that impacts the relationship with the Queen, but also the actual events of how the Queen handles the political aspects of the war that they're battling and things like that. So that power dynamic shifts throughout the film in ways that are very interesting, and Olivia Colman and Emma Stone and Rachel Weisz are just fantastic all the way through.
Yeah.
I think Rachel Weisz is actually the standout. A lot of people, I think Olivia Colman's, they could all be nominated and they could all win. They're just brilliant across the board. But Rachel Weisz for me is the standout. I think she has such a commanding presence in this film, and again, the way that her and Emma Stone interact is just very brutal and mean and wonderful. I found myself laughing throughout the entire thing. I just feel like he continues to deliver these films that, even from and I described the way it's shot with like these bizarre kind of fisheye angles, and the camera will kind of whip pan into a push, it's just off-putting to some degree. Killing of the Sacred Deer is very similar in that the way it's shot even is off-putting to some degree, and I think it all contributes to this really bizarre experience, and it's like nothing I've seen. Even though I've seen other Yorgos movies, this is nothing like anything, and I guess we expect that to some degree, but he delivers on that, and that's fantastic. And my only complaint about the film, I think it does meander a little bit in the third act. That being said, I don't think you could really cut anything out of the third act. I just think, I think the film, I think the way that the story progresses, some people will like it or some won't. I think the ending is very good. Some people will hate it. But I feel like it does lose a little bit of steam in the third act. Some of that's because it's not, the movie, the actual plot develops in the third act, and it's not as funny as the first two. But overall, it's one of the best movies I've seen all year. The performances are great, the script's great, it's really well shot, and the texture and the look of it is unlike anything I've seen this year, at least. And I think it's shot on film. It looks like it's shot on film. It wouldn't surprise me if it was. The way that the candles are illuminated in the frame, that it looks very filmic, and it has a little bit of grain to certain scenes that are a little lit by candlelight is what it looks like, kind of in a Barry Lyndon style, but intentionally off-putting, like I described. It's like the cleanness and the polish of a Stanley Kubrick film, but with a madman at the helm. This would be in my top 5. I haven't locked down the order. We'll do our top 10s next show. I don't know quite where this will fall. I'd like to see it again because I saw it very late, and it is not. I think it's a 2-hour movie, but like I said, that third act kind of felt a little long. But I also watched it at it was 1:00 in the morning by the time it concluded. So I feel like it kind of met my expectations, and so like I said, the cinema score would be it'd be a perfect rating on the cinema score because you kind of get what you paid for. But it's also a hard movie to kind of talk about because it's like. It's just great, and if you like Yorgos, it's like when the latest Tarantino or Coen Brothers or when those come out, you're just like, yeah, it's good. Like obviously, it's hard to kind of have a lot to talk about because it delivers on every expectation. I don't know.
There you go. That summed it up.
Anyway, I guess we'll get on to our last film.
Netflix film.
Apostle, not
the, but Apostle. But,
you describe it. I've been talking too much. And you've seen it more recently.
I did. I actually watched it right before Jeremy came.
You watched it this morning?
I was watching last night. I woke up at 6:00 in the morning yesterday, and we were wrapping gifts all night, and by 10 I was like, I'm gonna go to bed. But I started watching it, and I was out like a light. So I didn't rewatch. I just started watching from where I left off. Okay, so here
goes.
What's
this movie about?
So this movie's about a man who is given the task of bringing back his sister from a cult in the late 1800s, his father is destroyed by what happened. It seems like they actually make it seem like he was already out of sorts. They're rich, they come from rich, but when you meet this guy, he's kind of disheveled and crazy looking, and he goes.
Talking about Dan Stevens.
Dan Stevens, who Beauty and the Beast, played the Beast out of Dan Stevens.
Oh come on, The Guest is what I mean.
The Guest is a great
Beauty
film.
and the Beast?
I had to say Beauty and the Beast. It's my shout out to Rhonda. But anyway, but he's really good in it. He goes out to find her, and you see that this is some type of creepy cult that's on an island he gets there. There's a couple of things that I won't get into like details about how he got. But when he gets there
very quickly.
He does. He does a rope a dope where he knows that he has like a marked invitation, I guess you could say, and he ends up slipping it up with someone else who.
The cult is expecting him.
They're expecting him because he noticed that his invitation is marked, and he switches it with someone else, gets on the island with no problem, and he sees how sadistic and brutal that this cult can be. I mean, at first it does look idyllic, but it's not. And then we find out. I don't know how far you want us to go into spoilers about.
I think that's a good stop.
Okay, so that's fine. So
ultimately, on surface, the cult appears to be functioning very
normally on surface, but underneath
something very sinister.
Something sinister. I like that. Something sinister.
Directed by.
Yeah. That's real quick.
The one and only. Gareth Evans.
Gareth Evans. Yeah, Gareth. I said Gareth.
Do you know what other movies he's directed?
Yeah. Oh my God.
The Raid.
The Raid. Yes. The Raid Redemption.
I don't know what else he's directed outside of that. I guess
that's all you need to know. He directed
yeah.
The Raid, which is a great film.
I mean, I love The Raid. I'm a huge fan. Those movies are. I mean, it's just spectacular. So I was very excited for this.
Yeah, you turned me on to The Raid, and The Raid was amazing. Yeah.
So he directed The Raid 1 and 2, and then made this for Netflix. And I haven't seen it in about a month or two. It's been out for a bit.
Yeah, it came out in November, I think, though.
And if you're expecting kind of a similar movie to The Raid, it's very different. It's definitely more of a traditional film than The Raid.
And it's funny because there's a couple of scenes where Dan Stevens, and I thought it was a nod to The Guest. But now that it's Gareth, like he comes out of nowhere and starts kicking people's asses, and I'm like, what?
And it's shot like The Raid.
It is.
Yeah.
It is, and that's what I loved about it. I was like, there it goes. There's Gareth Stevens' stylish point. But yeah, it was like also he's like kicking people's leg, boom, boom, boom. Like, what?
Yeah. There's moments of like just straight action.
Yeah, right. Like come out of nowhere, there's action. But there's the horror element as well. But I really liked it. I have a problem, not a problem with the ending. I just thought that the ending was kind of too, it seems like the film's going to take a dark turn. And similar to The Wailing, I was like, oh my God, another 70s film. The Netflix loves the 70s film. But then it turned around and then it had this ending, which I saw coming.
It's almost supernatural.
Yeah, and I
guess.
It's
not even so much the ending, but the film takes a turn towards the supernatural.
Yes.
Which some people will like or not like.
Not like. I mean, going into the movie, knowing that, even from looking at the trailer, you see they show there's a sinister thing going on, and it may be dark. I mean, Michael Sheen, Dan Stevens. I don't think they've made horror films unless you count Twilight as a horror film for Michael Sheen. And The Guest is not really a horror film, But it's like, it goes into that territory, and like going back to the brother thing, you have Michael Sheen, who's the prophet, and then there's the enforcer brother, and then there's the sadistic brother, and when you put that into that they're brothers, and assuming I guess they're brothers, like Jared is my brother, but he's not my blood brother. But that's how it came across, because Michael Sheen and Frank, I don't know the actor's name, but they look alike. Now the big burly sadistic brother don't look like them, but when you have this relationship that's going on in the island with Frank's son and the burly brother's enforcer's daughter, I kind of been like, I said, is this like hinting back then? I mean, they're all living in a puritanical, religious cult island, and incest and everything. Ronald was like, yeah, it's incest. They did that back then, but I was like. But again, not that I'm not.
There is that underlying.
There is an underlying sense of
incest.
That incest going on, and I mean that threw me, like I hate the movie because I was just that it was kind of weird, and I was like, but then I understand everyone's view of why the ending goes to, leads to where it goes, because that's a seminal moment of the turn of events of the ending. Actually, not Dan Stevens has nothing to do with the ending turn events. It's themselves, the creators of this island, who end up turning the tide of the film. But I liked it. Again, the ending. I mean, again, I don't want to do spoilers, but I mean, even though I saw it coming, I just felt like, all right. It was a good movie up until the first 2 hours and 5 minutes. I'll accept this last 5 minutes. That's how I felt. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I do think I think it's really good. Up until so I don't dislike the ending. I just felt a little unsatisfied with the third act.
Yeah, there you go. Agreed.
and there's moments of just amazing, camera work and
Yes.
I mean, just
it's
amazing
beautifully
sequences
shot,
in this movie. And there's a horrifying scene in a pool in a river of blood that is
oh my God,
really spectacular.
Great scene. I love that scene.
So there's moments of just brilliance in it.
Yes.
And I don't think that the way that the plot develops is I've seen it once, and originally when I finished I was like, this is awesome. It's so different, and I'm so glad to see Gareth making stuff that's not the Raid. I mean, ultimately
true.
I love the Raid, but and
both.
we'll get another Raid at some point. But I'm glad to
And
see him doing
Dread,
more
which
narrative.
was a Raid.
Yeah, we'll see more. I'm glad to see more narrative stuff from him, and I think the performances are all great. Everybody's good in it, and there's great sequences of action and violence like we described. But then it just I haven't had a desire to go back and watch it, and that's a sign that there's something off about the third act.
The third act, yeah. And again, like I said,
if you like horror though, I could wholeheartedly recommend this. I feel like, but you may not like it. Like originally, this was in my top 10 for a while because I have a list that kind of revolves throughout the year, and I think it's at least dropped. I don't know; it may still end up being in there, but because I do really like a lot about it, and it's very different and it's exciting at times, and but there's just something about it that I don't like, and I'd like to revisit it though and see what that is. It's hard to because it's been too long since I've seen it.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you said, visually it's amazing. I mean, I love that, anytime a director I always go back to Clint Eastwood, and even John Ford, they knew how to shot scenery and landscape. And being that this is an open island, there's some beautiful shots of the island, of the sea, and I love that. And even the flashback with Dan Stevens' character, how or why he is who he is and what happened to him. It's a great scene too, kind of dark. Visually, it's beautiful. The stuff in the cabin at the end of the film, I love that cabin, going back to the cabin. It's just really good because every time the flowers start to bloom and everything goes from dark to green, very bright. I dig that, but it's just that third act. The third act, there's a lacking, and the ending kind of falls flat after you build this whole thing up, not that I wanted a happy ending, and not to say it's a 70s ending either. It's somewhere in the middle. It goes like you have a happy ending and then you have this dark ending, but it's not a dark, sad ending. It's just all right, whatever.
I feel like the ending it subverts our expectations, and which is good, but it doesn't mean that you'll like it.
Exactly. Agreed. I'll accept that. So
it's worth seeing though.
Oh no, definitely. I mean, it's free. If you have Netflix subscription, check it out. Go see it. You can see it right now if you want. You don't have to go to a movie theater and buy that $19.99 pass.
I would make it my Netflix pick of the week if I had to pick.
He almost rolled his eyes. Actually, I've seen a bunch of Netflix movies this weekend. I haven't seen some of the newer ones that just came out the other day, but I would recommend this, and I would put it on my Netflix pick of the week as well.
So our Netflix pick of the week is The Apostle.
Apostle.
Apostle?
Apostle.
I'm saying apostle. Is it? I mean, there's a T in there.
Apostle. That's right. The T is silent, as Jesus said. Apostle.
As Jesus' words. I mean, that's all we had to talk about today.
Yeah.
We could have probably talked for another hour about other
we
stuff.
We could. That's why I think we love each other, because we could literally sit here all day, literally talk about film.
And there's a lot of good movies to talk
I just
about.
get more bottles of water to wet a whistle, and we can just keep talking. I didn't even go into references, and we didn't go to side things too. But yeah.
We just talked about movies today.
Serious. But yeah, so I guess the next time we meet, we will have our top 10 movies of 2018. Unfortunately, it'll be in 2019 because you're going to be busy at the end of the year.
Yeah.
So it'll be probably the following weekend we can do it.
We'll figure it out.
Yeah, early January we can do a top 10 of 2018.
But yeah, we'll recap 2018 and all that it had to offer, and go through top 10s. And I think that'll be all that episode is, unless I see anything
probably
else.
Take up too much time, with the top 10.
So yeah, that's Indecisive Cinema.
All right, guys. Well, you take care. You have a great holiday. We'll see you guys after the holiday, and we'll see you then. You guys take care. Bye.